Hey everyone, this is Georgia from iMore, and welcome to the final episode of the weekly show focused on everything iPad, from news and how-tos to app and accessory reviews. This is the last iPad Live. It's Sunday, January 15th, and joining us today is the co-host of Iterate and CIO of Nickelfish, Mr. Seth Clifford.
Hey Georgia, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a little sad. Last iPad Live ever.
I know, it's really soul-crushing, but we're going to get through it.
We're going to have to get through it. I will try not to cry.
Yeah.
Also joining us is the editor-in-chief of iMore.com and my co-host on Zen and Tech, Rene.
Hey Georgia, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Unfortunately, I did not stay in Vegas. Brrr. I'm doing well, if popsicleized. I seem to be living somewhere in between Hoth and Solstice Secundus, and I wish someone would turn the sun back on.
Well, even though everything that happens in Vegas is supposed to stay in Vegas, can you give us a little more of everything that you saw that was newsworthy at CES?
Before we do that, I totally forgot about this, but we actually changed the name of the damn website while we were on hiatus.
That's true. We're no longer Tippy.
No, we used to be Tippy.com, and now we are iMore. And people are asking me why. Why, Rene? Some of them in tears, some of them in outrage, some of them in bemusement, and some of them surprisingly in agreement. They're saying why. The simple answer is this. My mother even asked me why. She said, "Why did you change it?" I said, "Mom, spell Tippy." She said, T-I-P-P, no, wait, T-I-B, no, wait, the I don't know. And I said, that's why. And that's a big part of the reason. People had trouble finding, remembering. I mean, the hardcore fans knew all about it. They loved it. But most people had a hard time finding the site.
Yeah, even when I had to tell people what my email was, and it's only 4 letters. Like,
Yes.
It's just my name with 4 letters. You would think that any 4 letters, it would be easy to give out. But one is it's not pronounceable. Like, everyone makes fun of how I say it, which is sad because you won't anymore, really.
No, yes.
And then the second thing is that because the P and the B are so very similar in, one is the way that it looks, and the second is the way that they sound, that no one ever got it. I actually usually would have to spell out, it's, the iPhone.
They would look at you.
But then even they'd be like, T-I, where's the I coming from? It would be just a big deal. So though people could find us that knew us and they're heartbroken about it all, I think that for other people to find us, iMore, M-O-R-E, that is easier to spell. One extra letter I can deal with on my email.
Seth, the people Georgia were talking about would stare back at you with this blank look, kind of suggesting that you didn't know it wasn't a word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's hard to, at our age, to feel like you don't know your own language. So it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising to a lot of people, and I certainly understand that change is never easy. People hated it when we went to Tippy, and the reason we went to Tippy is because they hated it when we were the iPhone blog and we were covering iPads because it wasn't in the name. And they hated the name iPad when it came out. So, I mean, is this the perfect name? I don't know, but anything was better for us than Tippy at that point. We happen to own iMore. It's a short name, starts in an I, gives people a suggestion of the Apple ecosystem, and it allows us to find an excuse to give people more stuff, more contests, more giveaways, more iPhone, more iPad, more apps, more accessories, more how-tos, more reviews, more of everything they love about their iOS devices.
Exactly that. So here we are.
So put that in your internet pipe and smoke it.
So let's go head down to CES, Rene. What was that like? I hear you did a little bit of traveling.
Yeah, well, CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, once a year in Vegas, it is, if not, the biggest, one of the biggest trade shows in the multiverse. And it's just silly big. It's big to the extent that they could separate out CES Mobile, CES Automotive, CES Television, and still have several ginormous trade shows. But they put it all together. It was so big that a lot of stuff wasn't even in the convention center. It was in like the Venetian and other hotels. But it's kind of like when you look at New York City and you see a building way in the distance and realize it's only halfway across town. It's that big. And the odd thing for us is that Apple is not there. Apple would not be caught dead at CES. Apple will never, at least the Apple that we know, be at CES. But there's a lot of accessory makers there, a couple app people, mostly accessory makers. And that means tons and tons and tons and tons of iPhone, iPad cases.
And you covered. Which ones were the ones that stood out for you, Rene?
I'm not really being facetious when I say this, but for me, it was kind of like the post-case era. For a long time, the people who owned smartphones were the edge people, the geeks, the people who were like the early adapters, and all they really wanted was a case to protect their phone, maybe a leather pouch if they were businessy, maybe a hard shell case if they were nervous. It was utilitarian. They had their case, they had their charger, they were fine. But now the mainstream people have it. Millions and millions of people, from soccer dads to, my mom, to everybody else, has these devices, and they get the case and they're like, what's next? And this is drab and, well, you've said that, Georgia. It's drab and black and leathery, and I would rather burn it than wear it. So we're finally seeing accessory makers try to make more interesting cases first, but also go beyond the case. Like it's a case plus a TV receptor, or plus a charger, or plus a remote control, or it goes into health, or it's automotive. We're starting to see that next generation of accessories that makes me much more interested.
That's more than just a case.
It's more than table stakes. Now they have to differentiate. Now they have to get creative again.
Right. And the next case that I'm taking a look at right now has a little kickstand on it. You know how
I'm going to make you go full screen because I want to see that. It's like Eddie Murphy with a kickstand.
It is. It's really cute, this one. This one's the Casemate, and there's a few cases that I'm reviewing that has little kickstands on it because I hate actually having to prop my case up on a pillow.
Oh, and boy, do the Casemate people love you, Georgia. They even gave you a shout out in their interview.
I know. How wonderful. I love it. I love it. They can spoil me rotten all the time. Just absolutely adore.
They had her at Shiny, Seth.
Right. And Sparkly.
They
actually,
always do.
The case. Yeah. I know. I go easy. This is a really cute case. I'm reviewing one iPad case from Casemate right now that has a kickstand and some other things. And the nice part about the Casemate ones with kickstands is, one is that the stand stays in place, and two, they have little rubberized feet so that it stays where it is and it's soft when you place it down. Easy to put on, easy to put off, and it will go in horizontal and vertical modes and stand really nice.
Cool thing. I mean, Casemate had
they make some awesome stuff.
They had a bunch of cool stuff, and we're going to be seeing a lot more from them. But there are these new companies like LifeProof. Before we had the Aquapacks, these big submersible cases, but they look like bags. And LifeProof figured out a way to make it in a tight-fitting case. It's a tight-fitting case that is waterproof, and you can drop it from 6 feet with no problem at all for your iPhone. I mean, you can't sit there all day and play basketball with it, but if you accidentally drop it, it's fine. But that wasn't enough for them. They designed the case, they did that. Now they're making mounts for bicycles, for helmets, for all sorts of things so that you can actually wear it while it's tough enough to protect it from extreme sports. So they're making it easier for you to use it during extreme sports. And that's the thing I like.
Yeah, I saw the one that was for a helmet or bike mount, and it was amazing. And the actual case itself was really durable. This was something that you could take, you could submerge, you could end up taking it through the dirt, through the sand, and you wouldn't have to worry. You clean it off and your tech is safe.
You could take it nickel fishing.
Exactly.
I'm thinking about buying one for my wife because she has an she has an OtterBox, and she's okay with it, but she doesn't love it. And I told her, hey, there might be something better that's a little thinner and even a little more protective, and she was definitely interested. So thinking about picking one up.
And the other thing sorry, Georgia?
There's a couple of cases also that I'm reviewing this week that are kind of in between, say, an OtterBox and a slim case. It has the dual protection in between the two, and still, you get it's not going to be huge and bulky and fit, have a difficulty. Plus, the OtterBox cases, though they are exceptional for protection, they look a little bit, they're a little.
Well, I mean, you used to have to choose between a fashion case and a protective case. It used to have to be a choice that you'd make.
Right. And just trying to write on an OtterBox if you're dealing with it, or play a game on an OtterBox, it's just awkward.
And they're thinking about that more. They're making molded cases that are easier to hold for gamers. Incipio actually has one, I think we put it up today, that has also more like a mechanical shock absorber. If you drop it, it actually will go into a core and crunch down. The other thing that was exciting was all the automotive stuff, like the Ford cars, any of the electrical cars. You can start them, open and close them with your iPhone. You can change the way it charges. You can check on the charge. You can check on the car diagnostics. We put up videos for those too. Derek Kessler from our sibling site, WebOS Nation, is a big car fanatic, so he was nice enough to do those for us. And it's just amazing how much medicine and automotive are adapting the iPhone as their interface.
Right. Well, it's another place where it's a great thing to have on your phone. And everyone does. Like everyone puts their phone with their cars, so it's nice that they have all of the different attachments of things that you can do with it.
And what's
Like
interesting,
we have one iPod in each of our cars that we bring and use all the time for, say, GPS, for entertaining the little creatures, whatever it so may be. So
yeah, and they're talking in the chat room, but like the thing is that so a lot of these cars either now they run Microsoft's fairly awesome car software, which powers Ford Sync and some other stuff. Some of them are looking at running Android because Android has become an embedded system, but it's not quite as old. It's not quite as tested yet as Microsoft or QNX, which is a long time really solid microkernel, super stable operating system, which is now owned by BlackBerry. So the lines between what's running your car and what's running your phone. I mean, like Sync isn't Windows Phone by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still made by Microsoft, Seth. And it's interesting how now there's a battle for these embedded operating systems as well. But the iPhone is still almost always the first interface that comes out for them.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's just because, you know, people like it. They want it. They want to hear that stuff. Like it's a more common touchstone, I think, for people. What I'd really love to see is some kind of, you know, kind of middle platform that bridges the smartphones and these embedded systems in the cars that basically serves as the conduit that you can plug anything into and it talks to anything else. And, you know, because there's going to be so much customization with these things that if you want to switch your phone and you buy a car that has a system that works really great with the phone you have, that's going to be a problem. So I love that this is happening because it totally gets us closer to that Jetsons reality. But I don't want to like go too far too fast. I want people to realize that there needs to be interchangeability because people keep cars a lot longer than they keep phones, you know? So it's awesome, but I hope this goes the right way.
I think it so far is. I mean, the Verizon was powering a few LTE cars that you don't need a smartphone for. It would just go over LTE to your house and stream your content from your computer. But most of the stuff that was shown off really was, you know, any phone via Bluetooth could control it, or they're dedicated apps mostly for iPhone, Android, and in several cases BlackBerry as well. On the accessory side, it was harder though. I mean, we heard time and time again from accessory makers that Apple, the iPhone 4S being the same as iPhone 4 was the best thing that ever happened to them because once again, they have 2 years. They made one set of molds. They made a slight adjustment for the mute switch on the Verizon iPhone and the 4S, and they can make any amount of cases. So they're getting more and more creative. They're making more and more different kinds of cases. But their problem with other platforms like Android is that there's so many new phones. They have to cut a new mold every time. It greatly increases the production cost. So they make less kinds. And one company, they made this really cool camera that would actually shoot 3D around you. And then you would be able to watch the scene from any angle later. And they built it into a case for the iPhone, but they didn't know what to do for Android because they didn't know which case to make. So they were testing whether they could just put it on a rubber band at the end and kind of hook it over the front of the phone.
Which really does lose the slickness value. The small one that you showed me that Leanna has for the iPhone is sweet.
That's the Ollie clip, and the video's not up yet, but we'll have it up soon. And that was a Kickstarter project, and you just clip it. Actually, I'll go grab it in a minute. You just clip it on top of the camera of your phone. It's in the other room. I have to go get it.
Yeah, go get it.
I'll just grab it, then I'll run and go get it. It's got I'm losing language. It's got a wide angle lens on one side. It's got a fisheye lens on the other side, and you unscrew the lens, and that makes it a macro lens. So it's 3-in-1. And that's cool because it just fits right over the iPhone.
You're right. It's definitely a step up from the photo lens that we were seeing before that attaches to a case. So you have to have a case that fits on, and then it screws into the case because in the end, when you're dealing with, you know, having a photography lens, my only issue with it wasn't that it's not that big, but you have to carry around this other photography lens along with you with your iPhone. And when I'm already carrying my iPhone around, I'm not going to be carrying a lot of different things. So it's much smaller because it doesn't attach to a case. It just kind of like slips over the iPhone. It's really, really beautiful. Like it's probably like, well, you'll see the dimensions when Rene goes to pick it up, Seth. But it's something that, yeah, I could fit that into my pocket and or into my purse, and it wouldn't take a lot of
I can't find it. It's probably in my CES bag. I have to go unpack it.
Ah, okay.
I'll splice some video in.
Post it'll have it all.
Post-production.
You'll see it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, in a nutshell, it was an interesting show, and the the crazy thing is we have Macworld. Leanna and I will be at Macworld in 3 weeks, doing some of it over again. Hopefully, some new stuff as well.
Very cool. Very cool.
It's tiring though. I mean, we're there like I think I got 3 hours sleep the first 3 days. We are nonstop, and we had about 15 or 20 people there this year. There was maybe 8 or 10 from Crackberry, 5 or 6 from Android Central, 4 or 5 of us from iMore. Dan from WP Central was there. Derek from WebOS Nation was there. It was awesome.
Yeah, you guys are rolling deep.
Stupid deep, Benz's, Beamers, and booming Jeeps. Exactly.
Well, that is not it for Apple. They're announcing a media event in New York City.
They're upstaging CES.
Yeah, Jim was talking about this. So, Rene, Jim was saying maybe it could be, books, iBooks. What do you think it might be?
So let me set the stage because this is awesome. We're in the middle of CES, and I have to tell you how silly media is in general. We're at CES, and our good friend Matt Panzarino, who's been on the show from the Next Web, as a joke, tweeted out, "Hey, Scott Forstall's at the Lenovo booth. Boy, is he unimpressed." Reuters picked it up. Ran it as a story. Scott Forstall at Lenovo booth, not impressed. Matt tweets back, that was a joke. The Reuters writer, so I can't trust you as a journalist anymore? I can't trust your Twitter stream as a source? He's like, no, it's a Twitter stream. By no means is that a source.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He should have went with it. He should have went with it. Like really, and Big Bird is with him.
He was carrying Steve around as a hologram, just like the Emperor.
And the iPhone, they're getting together to do a new app.
So the minute Apple didn't announce this event. Apple sent an invitation to a few journalists. They posted it up, and immediately we see the headlines: Apple attempting to upstage CES by announcing an event a week later at the Guggenheim that's about education and specifically not about hardware. So yeah, mainstream media is going to the penalty box for a while.
So, Seth, what do you think it's going to cover?
I think it's going to cover books and education, like the invite said.
That's so boring.
Probably.
Seth. It's not going to be an iPad 8? Come on.
It may be an iPad 8. We may just jump right past 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 because I've heard that that's in the lab, ready to go. Yeah.
And it's amazing how, because people love to read the tea leaves, George, they look at the invitation for any clue, and this one has the New York City skyline and a big apple on it. Does that mean that they're going to release a giant Apple building?
They're going to have another building, big, and it's going to be a place where you can study. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be hardware. There was a lot of people asking us immediately if it's going to be iPad 3. As far as we know, there's no iPad 3. We heard a week or so ago that iPad 3 is slated for March, and now Bloomberg has confirmed that they heard the same thing, so we're not expecting any iPad announcement here or any hardware announcement. But we spoke about this before, right? Textbooks are horrible. They're bad for the student. They're, I guess, good for the publisher, but they're bad for the student. Steve Jobs said in his biography he wants to revolutionize them. Maybe this is it.
Here we go, iBooks.
So
iBooks are textbooks.
Do they include iBooks in textbooks? Do they do something else? Is iTunes U involved? There's a lot of questions still. Looking pensive,
yeah.
Seth, like you might know an answer.
Well, I've kind of ranted about this before, that the textbook industry, and I'm trying to not get all fired up about it again, but it's between textbooks being extraordinarily expensive and, in some cases, a bad investment for students. Not in all cases, in some cases. And on the other side, with schools and things like not letting kids have lockers and them having to do things like carry all their books with them in clear backpacks so that people can't hide weapons and things. There's so many reasons why all of these things are leading toward a change, and why people have obviously lost the capacity for rational thought. So I would very much love to see that entire system upended, both the textbook industry and the craziness that follows with, unfortunate events in our culture. And I'm hoping Thursday will at least be a harbinger of that, if not the start.
How?
Well, the wonderful thing if Apple is doing it is there's no way that they're going to be $150 books. It's going to change no matter what. People that are selling the actual textbooks are going to have to lower their prices either way. If not, how are they going to compete with them?
No, it's got to be a price point issue, and that's probably why it's going to be such a big deal, because I don't think Apple would do this and strike deals with publishers if they weren't going to have something really spectacular to come to the table with and tell people, yeah, you know, that giant slab that you paid $150, $175 for, that's not going to be good in 6 months because they're going to release a second edition. Well, now it's only $60, you know.
Well, there's two Apples though, Seth. I mean, there's the Apple that carefully gets every duck in line and then has an amazing launch. And then there's the Apple that is stymied by big media in one form or the other and is forced to have an announcement where 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 4, or originally with the what's it called? DRM free music, only 1 out of the 4 is joining them. So do you think they'll actually get all the textbooks? Has been theirs, or they're going to have to settle for some sort of middle ground at first and then push it forward?
I would be surprised if they got everybody on board, because there's always outliers and people that are, you know, fighting that.
Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be everything. I think it's going to be a step in that direction, and I think it's going to be the kind of inroad that they got with the music industry, where it started and everybody was like, that's a great idea, hope it catches on, and then it does. And I think that it's got a lot of potential, because people are saying in the chat room, like, $500 is a lot to spend on an iPad, but if you've gone to college and spent money on books, you will blow through $500 in the bookstore in one semester. And you're talking about
it would be like maybe 2 books. Like I had some books that were $200 and something dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
It's
talking
ridiculous.
about a one-time investment. And if really you're looking at an iPad like a dedicated book reading device and not looking at it like, oh, I have to upgrade every year, that single iPad, you will be able to read books on that your entire college career. That one iPad. So it's a much better breakdown cost-wise.
Brad in the chat room is, I think it was Brad, was asking, what about the colleges that rely on income from selling textbooks? Yeah, screw them. That's not real income they should have been relying on. It's the same as the music industry people who took singers and made money off them to consumers. It was a middle ground. It was slack in the market. It was money that they were able to take because there was no better way to directly give content to users. And middleman business is never long-term. It's never reliable. They're going to have to find a better business model. Maybe they'll get a percentage of iBook sales. Who knows? But I don't think the technology should be stymied by people who have found, you know, nefarious and or opportunistic ways of making income in the past.
And it definitely should not be on the shoulders of the students who really can barely afford to eat as it is right now. They're already paying exceptional tuition rates, and the cost of a textbook, to be able to read it once for one semester, odds are you're not going to keep it, and you can't really sell it back because the odds are that they're going to change it, have a new edition. So if we can find any way to lower the cost for students, I think that it's great. I think that it is difficult though, because not everyone can afford an iPad, but if you're already buying your books, that should be under your tuition rates anyways. An iPad would be one of the things that you buy instead of that. 3 books, an iPad.
Not for nothing, there's a lot of colleges that years ago were giving kids iPods to take to class that they could download, recordings of lectures and things like that. And there are colleges, smaller colleges, where you get a laptop with your tuition. So the price of an iPad is, comparable, if not less than the price of a laptop. And I can definitely see that kind of cost being built into tuitions if this is going to be the kind of thing that colleges pick up and adopt and it becomes a regular thing. It's not out of the question.
And the worst thing about having, the 2 things that I would see with that is the worst thing when you have someone in your class that has a laptop is that, that typing sound that they have. And luckily with the iPad, you will not have to go through that horrible sound.
Unless they leave the ringer on. Tick, 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 tick.
Oh, come on. Who does that other than Captain Default?
Right here. Standing right here.
That it would be.
So we'll find out.
So at least that would be nice. And you could also tape your lectures and listen to them on audio afterwards as well, which is also a benefit. And you wouldn't have to worry about that all there. You get all the slides that are downloadable online. There's a lot of things that you could do with that.
I should have pointed out, I forgot during the CS segment, that we actually dog fooded the whole show. We recorded everything there, almost everything there, with an iPhone 4S camera using that Ollie clip lens and an iPhone 4 as a microphone, and then sync the sound together.
Phenomenal.
And did you find that it worked exceptionally
It
well?
worked way better than trying to record with just an iPhone as a camera the first day. It was just too noisy. And after that, it was smooth sailing. And I should point out also that we are going to cover that Apple event right here on the podcast. We're going to do the show live during the event, not streaming from there. Apple doesn't allow it. We're going to be here at HQ, but we're going to have, I'm not sure who will be available yet. Seth might be, Georgia might be. We'll find out. But whomever is available will be here watching it along with you and doing our usual color commentary and snarkyisms.
Yeah, I think I'm good for it.
Awesome.
Well, talking about a little bit of hot water, Apple has been in a little bit of hot water due to factory inspections that have turned up a little bit less than a glowing.
Well, that's not fair. They haven't been in hot water. They instigated these inspections. People were complaining about working conditions in China, and so Apple decided to go there, take a look. They didn't name names, but they did produce. They did kind of share the results and what they're going to do to take steps to correct them.
Yeah, but these are the places where they're getting their supplies from, and they're not doing a really good job. I think that it is Apple's responsibility to make sure that things are happening, like they have a lot of companies, they're doing a lot of iPads. In that way, I completely get it. But the reason that they're using companies that are mostly in Asia is for a reason, because it's really cheap.
Otherwise, your iPad would cost you $5,000.
Exactly. It's cheap for one reason, because they cut corners. That's pretty much everyone gets that.
But they're also, it's
not made in America.
It's important to point out that these aren't really Apple's factories. These are factories that assemble things for tons of companies, Dell, HP,
Microsoft,
everyone. Yeah, including Apple. And so far, I think Apple's the only one who's gone, they have not gone anywhere near far enough. Absolutely. I agree completely. But they're at least among those who have gone the furthest so far.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. Though, didn't Foxconn also, the whole bunch of the workers say that they were going to have mass suicides if their things didn't come? There's been a little bit of pressure from the media on Apple as well.
Well, yeah, there's actually and again, these aren't Apple factories, but the media pressure has certainly focused on Apple.
You can't really say that they're not Apple factories either. They're factories that supply to Apple. Apple pays money to these factories to get things others. They're not the only people that do it. You can't say that Apple can just wipe their hands of this.
No, but I am saying that the media doesn't say Dell factory worker conditions are horrible. They make sure they say Apple factory workers are horrible because people pay more attention to Apple
most of the media
headlines.
say the factories themselves, or they say, Apple, Microsoft, a lot of the different
They often
providers.
somehow manage to get Apple in the headline.
Okay, fair enough. So what responsibility do you think that Apple has to that? Here, let's throw that at Seth.
What responsibility? They have the same responsibility as they would in any capacity if they have any kind of human rights, standards that they're trying to follow. And they do. They have those internal policies, and they've tried to enforce them in the past. Obviously, it's open to debate as to how closely they need to monitor the working conditions and those things, because I think at a very high level, what they do is they enter into agreements with the suppliers. The suppliers sign off and say, we will provide X, Y, and Z. We will provide working conditions and living conditions if there's dormitories that the people are living in that meet a certain standard and things like that. And, they sign the agreement, and Apple gets the agreement and says, okay, the agreement's in place. Please do what you said you would do. And if they don't follow through on that, Apple can pull the contract and say, well, you're breaking our agreement, so we're going to pull our stuff out of your factory. But they're not the cops, they can't go there in Jeeps and roll up and be like, that's it, we're saving they're a business.
Book them, Dano.
They have to operate.
They can't do it that way. I think that the way that Apple did it was a responsible manner. They went in, they took a look what violations were happening, and they pretty much say, ship up, or we will send our money somewhere else.
That's a good question, Georgia. I mean, let's just say there's 3 companies that manufacture Apple displays, Samsung, Sharp, whomever, and all 3 of those companies are horrible. And Apple's like, you better fix this. They're like, nope, we're gonna take our business elsewhere. Well, okay, where? It's Schenectady. Where? What you gonna do about it? We live in a country where they don't enforce the laws. You're Apple. You want our displays or not?
I'll be honest. I think that they should go to another place. And yes, it would increase my costs here to produce it. But I don't think that they should say, well, because of that, and I want to keep my $500 price rate, I'm going to supply and actually fund a company which I now know has human rights violations.
So what they're doing, apparently, like they said some of the places failed, some of the places passed whatever standards Apple had internally set for them, and they're going to be going back. They did name their suppliers for the first time. Apple usually kept those as a very closely guarded secret, I guess for competitive reasons. They did name them, but they did not break down specific violations per supplier. They said there were bad things, and these are the people doing it, but they did not connect the lines as to who was doing the bad things.
So what do you think that they should do, Rene? Would it bother you if, your iPad was $50 more because it was produced in another place?
Well, it wouldn't be $50 more. It'd be like $5,000. It
wouldn't be $5,000. It doesn't mean that they have to make it in America.
Well, no, but I mean, they are producing stuff in Brazil.
There's a lot of different countries which supply things at extreme, like they have very low cost of living. So it's not going to be $5,000. That's kind of like just throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
We don't know what the price will be, but they did open a factory. Foxconn opened a factory in Brazil, but it's still Foxconn, right? It's not a new company. And are they going to do things differently in Brazil?
Or
we'll
India.
have to see. Or India, or they could outsource further to Sri Lanka.
Sure. So it's not going to be $5K. It wouldn't be $5K if it was produced here.
Might be. We don't know. But
no, it wouldn't. We do know. You know the price, how much it would cost to produce something similar. Like it might be even, I would say even double, but in the end, it would never be like.
I think that documentary that did it said it would be around $5K for a microwave if we produced it here.
And now microwaves are produced here. They're like $50.
Okay, I'm going to find that video, and we will have a reckoning on Wednesday, young lady.
Sure. Let's see how much the cost of American microwaves cost made here.
All right. I don't think there are any made here. Are there, Seth? You're in America. I'm not actually in America, so I can't say here.
Oh, geez. I barely use the microwave.
Anywhere in the Western world.
Yeah. No. Most of that stuff it's interesting. There are certain industries like automotive that are made here are forced to compete with Asian-made automotives, but there's not a lot of consumer electronics manufacturing happening here. And the big factories aren't here, and the pollutants at those it's much more than working conditions. There's pollution, there's all sorts of things, and I guess Apple as a company, they're beholden both to their civil responsibility and their shareholders. And again, I don't think Apple's going anywhere further enough, but they are going further than I think anyone else at this point. And I do think that they are given more attention by the media, and I do think that is part of the reason why they do go further, but maybe it's still not enough.
I agree.
You're absolutely right, though. There are so many factors to consider, like you said, pollution, that, the kinds of factories that we're talking about really only exist in certain places because the standard of living is so low already. And what really it means is that in addition to the human rights levels that need to be brought up to a certain point, we need to actually create cleaner manufacturing so that those factories don't have to be there. And then, it kind of levels the economic playing field, so to speak, and then they can branch out into other places. And, there's tons of people around the world who need to work and, who would be happy to have a job doing something like that if it were safe, if it were productive, and if, the end product was good for everybody. So there's a lot of stuff to consider.
And right now they go to places
and I don't mind paying, I have enough money to be able to pay a little bit of money so that other things are done well. U.S. made microwaves, $120 to $500. I'm good with that.
I don't believe it.
Okay, well, I'll send you the Amazon link.
Okay. Yeah, but they do deliberately go to countries where the standard of living is so horrible that deplorable is a huge uptick from that, and that is something that can't persist indefinitely. I mean, other countries have gone through industrial revolutions and raised working conditions. And we've seen that. We saw people outsource stuff to India, and then India built a middle class. So they took jobs away from the Indian middle class, caused massive unemployment, and put them in Sri Lanka. But eventually we'll run out of countries. And then what do, Seth? Do we persecute the poor people on the moon?
Why does it have to be through persecution? Why can't we just pay a fair price and make sure that things are made so that people don't have to suffer in order for us to have our tech?
That's a good question.
Georgia, why don't you think about that while you're out feeding your unicorn in the backyard, all right?
Yeah. Hug my tree, you mean? Go hug a tree and talk to me about that after.
Yeah, but I mean, these sound like easy problems, but you start to consider that you pay better wages for jobs that cost more for things. I mean, everything affects everything. They're not independent things. You can't just change one part of a system. It ends up changing the entire system. And maybe
in the end, we make the choice.
Yes.
You know, now with like the internet, with being able to speak about things, with making people aware of things. Without the internet, no one knew. No one knew what was happening behind the closed door. It was like Oz, right? Whatever was behind the curtain, no one knew, as long as they get their cheap tech. But once you see what's happening to people because of what we're buying, in the end, the consumer gets to choose by choosing
let me
to
ask you this.
something or
Seth,
not.
where do you buy your books?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, nowadays I buy from Amazon ebooks.
And that shuts down bookstores. And I feel horrible for all the bookstore people. I feel horrible for the people who made wooden toys, that plastic toys, killed their industry. I mean, like, if I want to be moral about it, I'll be that guy who can't even eat because he didn't create the universe first. It's such a...
Yeah, this is going really, really
well, no,
far.
absolutely.
Though,
but I mean, there's just so much. Amazon drives down prices, putting people out of business.
Apple can afford to, and the people that buy Apple products can afford to. If I'm starving to death, oh yeah, it doesn't matter where I'm going to go. If I have to feed my kids, I'm going to commit whatever crime that may be done to deal with it. If I'm, really, really poor and I have to eat, I'm not spending $124 on a microwave. I'm going to buy that $50 microwave, and I don't care what's happened in order to make faster food so I can go out and do everything. But Apple products, they're not in that range. So it's not really a fair assessment in comparison.
Well, they're luxury items. They're pretty much luxury items.
They're luxury items bought by people that live
fairly affluent lives.
Very affluent lives. If I pay $150 extra for an iPad, I'm not going to bat an eye. Other people definitely wouldn't. That might shut other people out, and I would feel bad for that. But again, I think that it's Apple. I'm happy that Apple is taking the stage to, one, be honest about what's happening, name names that they have to name so that things can happen and change in place. And it'll put pressure in the end. Apple's also doing it for political reasons, because it'll put pressure on the other companies that do business with the same things. Now, Apple can afford to go and spend a little bit more, but other companies that are barely surviving, this could crush them.
Yes, no, that's a very good point.
So it's political as well. It's smart. It's very, very smart business.
Absolutely. Do you know what's even smarter business?
Do tell.
Introducing the iPhone 5 years ago last week. And I will just put it in this context. Seth, are you ready?
I am.
5 years ago today, Steve Jobs took the stage at Macworld and introduced 3 new products: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communicator. An iPod, a phone, and internet communicator. Are you getting it, Seth?
I'm getting it.
They weren't 3 devices. They were 1 device. They were the iPhone, Georgia. 5 years ago, he said it would take 5 years for the competitors to catch up. And at CES, we saw the Nokia Lumia 900. We saw the HTC Titan 2. And we saw, and I kid you not, 4 Android tablets announced before Phil Nicholson's plane landed. We saw 18 Android devices announced by the time we did our first podcast on Tuesday night. And I think there was 26 or so by the time CES ended. 5 years later, Seth, have they caught up?
Well, depends on what you're talking about. I think hardware-wise,
look at those phones, Seth.
Yeah, there's some good hardware out there. I mean, those new Nokia phones are very, very good-looking phones.
And there's a privilege of sitting. Dan from WP Central got to interview. I forget the man's name from Nokia, but the head of of that product from Nokia, and Jim Belfiore, is that how you pronounce it?
Belfiore?
Belfiore, yeah, the head of Windows Phone. I was his cameraman, much as I was Kevin's cameraman last year for the Playbook unveiling. But and I got to play with one, and it is kind of science fiction. I mean, it is completely round, like a cylinder, Georgia. You cannot find a seam. It's plastic that feels like metal. And it really is like one unit. They did a remarkable job engineering that.
I'm kind of excited. Actually, it sounds slick. It sounds really slick.
And it's big because it's LTE, but I mean, it's not hugely big. It's not like Titan 2 big.
Well, it's so funny. Seth, take a look at the old Palm Trio. Like, it's just how far phones have come. The iPhone really did change the manner in which the look of which some people wouldn't say it's the iPhone. Maybe they would say it's the technology as it changed. But the phones look more like what the iPhone did in 2007. Yeah. And it's really amazing to see how different they are in such a short amount of time.
It's funny you should say that, because Ashley took a look at a Samsung window TV for us. It's basically a clear glass OLED panel that when you swipe it turns into a television, covered with almost exact duplicates of of Apple widgets, for what it's worth. But that was an interesting question at CES, because there was a bit of a brouhaha about whether Samsung actually is copying Apple, whether Samsung's deliberate intent is to make products for people who love the Apple aesthetic but hate Apple, and in so doing make all the money in the Android universe, because they're doing much better than Motorola, they're doing much better than HTC. And that was a lot of the kind of products that we saw there. It's inarguable that the Android devices all have, many of them have features that we don't yet have on iPhone and iPad. I mean, quad-core tablets. The rumor is we're going to get a quad-core iPad 3. They have LTE. The rumor is we're going to get an LTE iPad 3. Is this technology you want, Seth, or you think Apple is still too concerned with experience to play the spec game?
I don't think they're too concerned with experience to play the spec game. I think they've made a conscious decision not to play the spec game, and I think that strategy has been working thus far for them. I think that they'll continue to incrementally update the hardware as they see fit when the hardware is meeting their standards for performance, battery and screen and all that stuff. And I think that the argument can be made that they may be the only people right now successfully playing the experience game. Obviously, there's a lot of great stuff, like Windows Phone is iterating in such a way that, when we kind of pick them up, we look at them and we're like, wow, these are fantastic devices. We wouldn't buy one and use one as our everyday device because,
and they're actually counter-programming Android, Seth. They were very clear about that in Dan's interview. They think that when you pick up an Android phone, it's going to be complicated, a hassle, and you'll end up returning it and maybe going for a much easier to use Windows Phone.
Right. And I think that if anyone's bridging that gap and kind of straddling that, Microsoft is really successfully, because the Windows Phone interface is gorgeous. I don't feel it's real intuitive, but the experience is nice. It's very cohesive. It's very smooth and very clean. And obviously the hardware, they've done some good things in that they have variations in the hardware to suit a lot of different use cases and what people might want, but there's still a very unified feel to all of those things. So I think Apple is on one extreme, which is very experience-based and incrementally updating hardware slowly. Android is on the other extreme, basically, forging ahead way out in front with hardware. And then I think Windows Phone is kind of sitting in the middle of that. And I'd very much like to see them gain a little bit, just because I know, but I think both sides have a lot to learn from that middle ground.
Well, can I cut in just because we're running out of time and I'm dying to talk about the iPad 3?
Do it.
Okay, what, Seth, do you think we're going to get for the iPad 3? Is it going to be a new design? What, are we going to get the quad-core chipset? Because, that's what girls find hot. LTE, what is going to happen?
I think definitely Retina screen. Obviously, at this point, that seems like a foregone conclusion, but let's say it anyway. Definitely processor upgrade. I don't know about quad core, but probably. I mean, at this point, probably. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about the LTE thing. I could see them going to LTE on the iPad first, only for the reason that it's not the flagship device. So if LTE on the iPad didn't work as well, it could be an option as opposed to the thing that people need to use every single day.
Plus big honking battery.
That was my next point. The other thing is I could see them doing it because they can look at it and say, okay, we're going to give this radio a try. We think the chipset's ready, and we've got the battery life in this thing to actually give it a good shot.
So
Renee, does that mean that it's going to be thicker?
Well, I was going to back up for 1 second. Mickey Papillon, the cell phone junkie from the Cell Phone Junkie podcast, who nailed the Verizon iPhone before anybody because he happened to know the chipset it was getting, believes fiercely that it's going to have an LTE chipset, that the chipset is ready, it's going to be in there. I have my doubts solely based on adaption. I mean, Verizon has a fairly successful LTE rollout. AT&T is getting started a bit. Sprint is still unclear because they've dabbled with WiMAX. T-Mobile is up in the air, and that's just in the US. Internationally, Canada's getting it. Some European countries are getting it, but it's different frequencies. You're going to have the same problems with it, having to support multiple bands. And we've seen in the past that Apple was happy to wait an extra year to get 3G. So, I mean, it took them an extra year to get HSPA+. I can see them going with LTE if they think that it's an advantage to those who have it, but it's such a new technology, I can just as easily see them waiting.
Yeah.
Because of the battery power.
Yeah, and like I said, we heard a week or so ago that it is going to be a March launch, but that it is going to have a similar design, but nothing about LTE and nothing about quad core. So that could just mean that we haven't heard about it yet. But I find those are maybe more of the fuzzy details still.
Okay.
I don't even think it's about the battery, George. I think, like Rene said, it's about the rollout, that it's still not dominant enough for them to sell it and say to people, here's why you need to buy this thing. Yeah, the screen's nice, blah, 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 LTE. Because a lot of people in this country are going to be like, yeah, great, that doesn't do anything for me. And that's not a selling point for them.
And Verizon has been fairly clear to both Windows Phone and to BlackBerry, saying that if you want on our network, you have to be LTE. But Apple is fortunate to be in a position where they dictate the terms. I mean, their devices are so popular that people want them. And no network, I think, is going to turn them down if they don't have LTE this year.
Hey, quick question. What is the LTE situation in other countries?
I mean, Germany is rolling it out. Canada is rolling it out, but again, different frequencies. I think it's going to take. I forget what Jay said about the UK, but I think it's still a couple of years away in the UK.
Yeah, so that's another thing to consider. That the iPad is not a US only product, so if it's not really something they can sell across the board, that may be a real deal breaker for them.
So Jessica raises a good point. The reason the carriers want LTE devices, the reason, for example, that Nokia thinks the Nokia Lumia 900 will get a real hero phone treatment from AT&T is that AT&T is desperate to get people off of iPhone clogged 3G and onto the 4G network just to alleviate some of the congestion. So if the iPad moves there, that's just one more a little bit less load for the 3G network. But again, that's still a very small concern compared to Apple's global rollout.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go quickly. Is Siri coming to the iPhone 5? The iPad with is Siri already? Yeah, thank you.
It's getting late.
Is Siri coming? Let's take two. Is Siri coming to the iPad on the next iOS 5.1 release?
This is interesting. This is Mark Gurman, the resident ninja from 9 to 5 Mac. He found some strings in there. And actually, when he found them, I was at a party. I think I was at a party with Seth Weintraub from 9 to 5 Mac. And he was saying, yeah, but we also found them in the iPod, and they could just be cross-platform references. I am convinced that Apple has this running in the lab. The only question is whether Siri's network is strong. We don't see Siri failures as much anymore, but we still see them. And also iPad comes in a Wi-Fi only device, which means it wouldn't always be on the network. But I think they'll do it if they can. It would be a good selling feature for an iPad 3.
Now, do you think that it will come to all iPads or just the iPad 3?
Apple is generally...
Because that would be a reason to just get the iPad 3.
Yeah, Apple is not afraid to be jerks about stuff like this and say if you want certain new features like video recording or multitasking, you're going to have to update your device at a certain point. And again, we've seen Siri network failures, and they're not going to want to dump, I forget how many iPads are on the market, 30 million, something probably more than that by now. They're not going to want to dump that many new devices on the Siri network all at once. They're going to make you wait.
So that's a maybe?
I think it'll be on the. I'm assuming it's going to be on the new device. I don't think it'll be rolled out to past devices. Maybe not until iOS 6.
With Siri being so popular and people really enjoying it, I see it as being a great selling point. It would be a really sad thing if they did not have it on the iPad 3, whereas I can see them not having it on the on the iPad 2. Devices. Just again as another reason why some people will choose to upgrade.
Can I get on my soapbox and complain for a minute, Georgia?
Sure, go ahead.
There are certain elements of the mainstream media, and I love them. I love reading their opinions. Not even mainstream media, mainstream blog. I don't know what the right term is. Certain bloggers who I love reading their opinions. They have excellent thoughts, but they are not all tuned into mobile. I mean, sure enough, mobile is new. Mobile is different than the traditional Mac and PC market, but there was this incident that happened where this guy was listening to the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and his alarm went off. His iPhone alarm went off, and the conductor stopped the orchestra. It was it made the headlines. And now a bunch of people are discussing the iPhone mute switch. Why has no one talked about this before? They're saying very publicly. Dudes, we've been talking about this since 2007 because iPhone did it differently than Trio from day one. You can go and search the Googles and you will find articles of me and Dieter arguing about it because he liked the old Trio. A mute switch is a mute switch. Everything goes dead. And I like the iPhone way. For 4 years. So this is not a new issue. I mean, it's an important one. The more attention, the better. But you guys got to read some mobile blogs. I mean, come on, really? It's 2011. It's time. You can do it.
Yeah, I actually was, wanting everything to be able to turn off at first when I had the mute switch. But now I really do appreciate that I can, and maybe there should be a setting for it. I'm sure that there's jailbreak for that. But I do appreciate that when you turn the mute switch off, my alarm will still go on. Because what happens is I'm in session all day. I don't have vibrate on or my phone on, so I'm completely muted. But I want to be able to wake up in the morning, and I will forget to unswitch my mute switch. So I actually do appreciate the manner in which Apple does it. But, I can get that it's really embarrassing to have your alarm go off. And it's hard to turn off your alarm on the iPhone. You hit the wrong button. I have to unlock my phone in order to turn it off, which is so very
Georgia,
annoying.
the chat room is informing me that it's actually 2012. It's the year changed on me at some point, and I failed to recognize it.
Edit in post.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Seth. So, so one point of view, and this is the one that Dieter would argue, is that it should be a binary state. It should be sound on or sound off, because that way it is the user who determines the state of the device. Either you consciously, you can accidentally do it, sure, but you consciously turn off all noise, or you turn it back on. Where Apple, in my sort of point of view, is that it's not a mute switch. Apple doesn't call it a mute switch. They call it a ringer switch. The switch turns off the ringer on the phone. And some sounds are important, like alarms, that you don't want a person flipping a ringer switch because they don't want the phone to ring and then missing their alarm.
Well, yeah, the way Apple looks at it is that if you have created an occurrence where the phone should alert you to something, or you have invoked the phone to deliver some kind of audio, like you're watching a movie, then the ringer / silent switch, it has no bearing on that.
It's
so
overridden.
Yeah, some people would argue that, like Dieter would, that no, it's either on or off and everything's off. But the way Apple looks at it is that you have asked the phone to do something at a certain time, and if you tell the phone not to do that thing, the phone has to make a choice. It can't do both. So the only problem I had with this story that we got this whole thing started is that the guy had a phone that had an alarm on it that he didn't set for some reason. So
so he maintains.
Yeah, I think that he just said that to,
Yeah, so that's my point, is that the phone is not completely sentient. It's not going to know, oh, you know what? I'll be quiet now. I'll ring this alarm later.
Dude. So, my bad.
Yeah. So basically, I kind of agree with the Apple way that, like, if you flip that switch, it's silent unless you are asking the phone to do something with audio, or you have asked it to do something at a certain time with audio, and then it's going to override that control.
Well, let me throw this to Georgia, because this is a good thing for her to weigh in on. The ultimate point, and I do agree with Dieter on this, is that Apple also allows developers to make a choice about whether the sound gets overridden or not. And the end result of that is that as a consumer, you can never be 100% sure whether there's going to be sound or not. And I think that lack of certainty creates a certain level of problems for the user, and that it should be an absolute thing. It should be that sound is off unless it's overridden by a user, or that sound is off. I don't think that there should be any room for vagaries, because that's when the UI starts to break down.
Yeah.
Right. I think that it's only good for alarms and apps that are running alarm systems. That makes full sense. If I use an application to set my clock, then that would be able to be that. And I think that in the end, it should be right. Exactly. I think that in the end, it should be up to the user, that they should be able to just, mute everything, or just mute besides alarms. Couldn't that be easy? I know. I'm using an Apple product. I never get this. Though, in the past, Apple has gone back on a few things of which they were like, oh, we're changing this. This is now going to be the, on the iPad,
the orientation lock.
Switch for orientation, and they gave us the option. So I don't think it's too crazy to ask about it.
Yeah, I mean, like it is definitely a Hobson's choice, because you don't want 3 states on that switch. You don't want off, kind of off, and on. So you have that switch has to be binary.
No, it's like the cat is dead or the cat is alive. The cat being
Schrodinger's mute button.
Dead alive. That makes a messy Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, so a preferences thing where mutes all or mutes ringer is definitely a good compromise. iOS 6. Let's do it, Apple. You're running out of things to add.
I just can't believe we're talking about this now, this year, now.
Dude, the other day, Fraser Spears, awesome guy, did a fantastic write-up on why you don't have to force quit multitasking apps in iOS. Fantastic write-up that we and a bunch of other iOS blogs wrote back when iOS 4 was introduced and reminded people about again 6 months later. There is a certain contingent of people in the tech world who don't read the mobile blogs they should be reading, and these things are new to them, and we have to, and sometimes they do a better job of explaining it than us. So, we'll just, when they come around, we'll just, recapitulate it.
Okay, I have something to talk about, and it's sad that we can't talk a little bit more about applications because I have an application that has actually sent me a message.
What?
Like the app at some point has actually sent me a message saying, you know what, your pets are dying and they miss you. And it popped up on my screen.
Oh,
so
yeah, we heard about that. That's really wrong. They should not be
And so I
that.
have a message on one of my apps. So I'm going to show it right here. So
That's
here
creepy.
we go.
Can you screen capture that?
Yeah, I can.
So we've had complaints about this before.
I don't have the actual text, but it actually sent me a little pop-up for a tag. You can see the little one that's open.
Yeah.
It was really upsetting and weird to me for this app to open up. It's and I've already got the app. I don't know what they're not making any more cash off of me off this application, but what's up with that?
You know what I think we should do, Georgia?
We need a place where we can talk about this.
Yeah, you know what I think we should do, Georgia? Seth, I have an idea. You know, like how we now have the iPhone live show on Wednesday and the iPad live show on Sunday, Seth? You know, you've been to them both, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes the news applies to both of them. Like if a new version of iOS comes out, we end up talking about it twice. It's kind of redundant. A lot of the stuff is overlap now. Sure, when the iPad was new, it behooved us to have a separate show because, iPhone people were angry if we spoke about iPads. But now we all get along. I think it would be a better use of our audience's time. It'd be more respectful, more apropos, more pertinent if we just had one iPhone and iPad live show on Wednesdays. What do you think?
Like that idea. And then what would we just be losing a show on Sundays? Where would our people go?
We're here. I mean, we're podcasting anyway. Might as well talk about something.
Okay, so what do you think we should talk about? Because I have all kinds of like tech and cool stuff, and now at the level that I'm getting the stuff, there's no way I can cover it in the 1 minute that we have at the end of the show.
I think we are going to do the news show, the iPhone and iPad live news show on Wednesdays, and that frees us up on Sundays to have the iPhone and iPad apps and applications show. Sorry, apps and accessories show. Boy, I did that poorly. That frees us up on Sundays. Can we give
stuff away?
Hold on, I'm redoing it. I'm going to edit this out so no one will know how dumb I am in the podcast. That opens us up on Sundays to have the apps and accessories show. Live. We will have live apps, live accessories. We're going to increase our technology so we can show you apps. We're going to show you a ton of accessories. We're going to go deep dive. Seth's going to talk about productivity. I'm going to talk about things that make Seth talk about productivity. It's going to be fantastic.
And can we give stuff away? I love giving stuff away.
Oh, hells yeah.
Yeah, we should. I want to give away apps. I want to give away accessories. I have accessories now, like just everywhere. So let's give our people some stuff.
We'll do that next Sunday.
Does this mean you're going to start sending me stuff to review?
Do you want to review stuff?
I don't know.
Dude, the minute you say yes, your mailbox is going to start pinging like it's an iPhone alarm gone riot at a concert.
Yeah, I got it.
Or you can do apps. It's completely up to you.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just do a whiskey podcast. Fancy whiskeys from around the world.
I think Mule is already doing that.
You could do an app on telling you what are the best whiskey podcasts.
The best whiskey apps.
The best bag
best whiskey
ever.
Accessories.
Sweetest thing ever. Yeah.
Let's make it
stuff away. Let's burn some stuff. Let's destroy some things.
Georgia,
let's make a shows.
Hold on, she's getting too excited there. I got to stop her before we go up for a 3-hour show. Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it so, like Picard.
So say we all.
So say we all. Engage. So next Sunday, it will be Apps and Accessories Live. Booyah!
I love it. I love it.
All right.
Okay, well, let me say thank you then to you, Rene, for making it so.
Thank you. I appreciate you being thanked of me here.
And how do we find you?
You can find me at the brand newly renamed iMore.com or on the Twitters at Rene Ritchie.
Perfect. And Seth? Thank you so much. It's been a while since I've seen you.
I know. It's so nice to be back together again.
I know.
It's so nice. You can find me on Twitter at Seth Clifford. You can find me on iMore's shows. You can find me on Iterate with Rene and Mark Edwards of Bajango. And if you'd like to check out some of the work we do, apps and sites we build, and that kind of stuff, please visit our website, nfidm.com. We're Nickelfish.
Sweet.
And I'm Georgia. You can find me, unfortunately, still on Twitter at Georgia Tippy till I find something else. And you can reach all of us on Twitter at iMore. And you can email us at podcast@imore.com and leave a comment when the website and show goes live. We're here every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, and our companion show, iPhone Live and iPhone Live.
No, do a redo. I had a retake. You can have one.
Yeah, because that just sounded
Do it
rude.
again. There's no iPorn Live, folks. Don't get excited. I mean, I'm sure there is, but it's not ours.
Exactly. And our companion show, iPhone and iPad Live, is on at the same time, same channel, Wednesday nights, www.imore.com/live for all our podcasts, audio, video, including iPhone and iPad Live, Zen and Tech, Super Functional, Iterate, Girls Gone, Gadgets, and more. See mobilenations.com/show. If you haven't already, subscribe, and thank you to the iPad Accessory Store for sponsoring this podcast. And hearts to everyone who showed up live for the last iPad Live everywhere. Okay, throws the mic.
We found out that MacGyver's first name was Angus. We found out that it started in the past, Will. We found out that it was really God keeping them on the island. We found out that Scott Bakula never left home.
Don't ruin Buffy for me. I'm well.
Yeah, don't ruin all the shows in one show, because then no one's going to watch.
We found out that Georgia was Luke Skywalker's father.
Shh. Georgia, iMorgia is gone. Some squatter has it now, so you snooze, you lose.
Damn it.
You see, I was so excited to get it, too. I was just about to snatch that baby up, and...
Yeah.
Oh, you're so sad now.
So sad.